Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project, where we look at 2 films at a time, distributed by A24 every 2 weeks. This week we conclude 2014 with Revenge of the Green Dragons and A Most Violent Year. But first, we have our A24 Hour news, and it's a big one this week. So Dallas, how have you been?
I've been very well and very excited by I wouldn't say a slow trickle, it's been more like a steady stream of A24 news that we've had in the last week, and lots of exciting things for UK and US audiences. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the joy of us podcasting, is that sometimes we do these things. We do this every 2 weeks, and without fail, there's always some news announced a day after or literally an hour before we start recording. We're completely unaware of it. And one of those bits of news, I think it just broke about 2 seconds after we closed our last episode, was that the first iTunes sort of A24 partnership movie has kind of broke. So it's going to be Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray returning in a movie called On the Rocks. And On the Rocks is about a young mother, played by Rashida Jones, who reconnects with her larger-than-life playboy father, naturally played by Bill Murray, on an adventure through New York. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the details on this movie are still somewhat unknown. So yeah, I think it's quite a big one to kind of launch sort of onto iTunes and perhaps not into cinemas. It's interesting.
Well, very excited. I actually hadn't read the synopsis, so this is all new, brand new information for me. And I couldn't be more excited. I mean, you've got essentially the follow-up to Lost in Translation, reteaming Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray. You've got Rashida Jones, who was great in Parks and Rec. I love her movies. Also, as a writer as well, who did, was it Jessie and Celeste Forever? I thought that was a great underrated film that not many people have seen. Never really got a UK release. Fantastic. And she did... At one point, she was writing a draft of Toy Story 4. I'm not sure if that's still the draft that was used for the final film. But she did a lot of writing as well. And the fact it's set in New York, as everyone knows, I love New York. So, I mean, this is just ticking all my boxes. And I guess we'll have to see what format it comes into in the UK. But with all these things, as Netflix has started, they're slowly dipping their toes in the theatrical cinematic release market, so there could be a few screenings pop up, but even if it is just on streaming on iTunes or whatever, I'll be first day, download, watch, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, a Sofia Coppola movie, most weeks would get my attention in a cinema. Then you throw in Bill Murray, and then now A24 of them coming back together on there. I'm really excited to see which kind of way this takes, and how kind of iTunes are going to do this. Is it going to be something where it's going to be another subscription service? Is it going to be just something that you pay and play for? I'm really curious to see how this sort of iTunes streaming service, or whatever they're going to do, is going to work, and is this going to be something that I can justify paying extra, another $10 a month on top of what everything else I'm paying for?
Absolutely. And I mean, it must be something special if A24 have picked this to be their first co-production. I mean, up until this point, it's pretty much been purely distribution and exhibition, and I believe sort of dipping their toe into sort of TV sort of work, but for their first feature, this should be something pretty special given the quality of output that they've had so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And most weeks this would be the most biggest and exciting most of news from A24, but again, as you say, it's been a trickle this week. And on top of that, we have, as we had a feeling it would, but we vastly underestimated how exciting this would be, but 8th Grade has been announced as coming to the Glasgow Film Festival, and not just the film itself over 2 days, but Bo Burnham himself will be attending, which is incredibly exciting news.
It is very exciting news. However, I guess your excitement is slightly dampened, isn't it, Lee? Because as anyone who's probably been listening to the podcast so far, you've been quite upset and critical in the fact that you have been thwarted time and time again in seeing this film in every opportunity that it's come to the UK. And what are you doing the 2 days that it's on at Glasgow Film Festival?
Well, last year, I decided I was going to, it was my parents' 60th birthday, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take them to Hamilton. We're going to go see it on the Saturday. And my parents were like, well, why don't we go down on the Friday? And then it kind of ballooned into, well, why don't we all fly down after our works on the Thursday evening, get down to London nice and early so we can enjoy Friday, Saturday, full days there. I was like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. And before I'd even read to the bottom of the email, when the news was announced through the Skinny, I was like, oh my God, it's coming, Dallas. It's going to be awesome. And then I was like, I think I was to you, I was like, I can't see the dates. And then you were like, oh, it's the 28th and the 1st of March. And my face just dropped, and I was like, I'm going to be away seeing Hamilton. What middle-class woes that I've got, that again, my attempts to see 8th grade have been delayed. So unless they're doing a press screening for 8th grade, which they haven't announced yet, I will have to now continue to wait till April or a press screening then to see 8th grade. So the wait continues, but I know you're intending to try and get down to see
absolutely. Yeah, I think you're just going to have to accept it now that you will not see it before the 26th of April when you do a double bill with Avengers and Infinity War. But I can just imagine you just in your office just shaking your fist going, damn you, Lin-Manuel Miranda, every time.
And it's the fact that I'm seeing Hamilton for the second time as well. So, first world problems all around here, but we'll get there eventually.
Well,
so, it's going to be worth the wait.
Definitely go and see it in Glasgow because, to paraphrase, I guess, the man himself, you've got to take your one shot. I believe that's a song from Hamilton. I haven't seen Hamilton. I've never listened to the soundtrack. I like to listen. I don't like to listen to soundtracks before I see a production or a film, so I'm not sort of got any sort of bias towards the music and stuff like that. But I believe that is a song. Am I correct?
It is, yes. It's My Shot, which is also a brilliant song to run along to too.
So yeah, hopefully the A24 project will be on the red carpet and in the audience to ask Bo Burnham all the burning questions that you and the audience may have for him at that time.
Exactly, and I suppose while we're on the topic of the Glasgow Film Festival, we will have a bit of a unique presence at the Glasgow Film Festival. Everyone loves a goodie bag, so you're going to get A24 Project stickers with our, logo of the ghost story ghosts listening to the podcast. They are going to be in every single goodie bag for opening night when everyone goes to see Mid-90s. So that's an A24 film that's going to be opening the Glasgow Film Festival. So amongst all your different amazing goodies that you're going to get in a tote bag or something, you're going to get a bit of the A24 project in there. So 610 stickers arrived in Glasgow today, so something to look forward to for people heading along to see Mid-90s.
Absolutely, and I'll probably go down with my A24 project tote bag myself, along with my A24 mug, which of course you can buy online with all sorts of other great Nerd Party merchandise. Shameless plug.
Exactly, always be plugging. And that's not even the stickers. This wasn't even down as news to share. There's still more news to go. So, Under the Silver Lake, David Robert Mitchell's newest film, which was delayed until April in America, will actually be coming out in the UK first, and it's going to be released on March 15th by MUBI, who recently did the UK distribution for Suspiria. So I was actually quite excited as well today, because I was like, I got an email from the Prince Charles Cinema that's doing like an exclusive screening in London. It was like, it's going to be shown on the 1st of March and dates like that. And I'm like, I'm going to be missing 8th grade, but I'll get to see Under the Silver Lake a bit early. Then they sent an email going, oh, by the way, it's actually later in the month. It's actually the official, date that was released. We just got it wrong. So Under the Silver Lake will be coming to the UK before America. So they may have got 8th grade 15 months or whatever early. We get Under the Silver Lake a month early. So it's going to be curious to see this film. It's had a bit of a interesting reputation with it being kind of constantly delayed in America. Now we're going to get the chance to finally see it.
I know, but I believe I'd heard rumours that following the reaction at Cannes, that it may have been recut slightly. I don't know if I read that correctly, but there may have been some edits made following the reaction at Cannes, so it might not be the version that was originally shown at the festival. But again, who knows? There may be an A24 hat-trick at Glasgow, and it might show up there now. It's got a confirmed release if it's out on the 15th of March. Glasgow Film Festival starts on the 20th of February. Perfect launching pad. Just saying.
Yeah, the sort of frustrating thing is we are recording this one day before before Glasgow Film Festival does their big announcement of their plans. So, knowing our luck, they will have maybe even High Life, who knows, that they're going to be screening at their festival. So again, we might have some news in 2 weeks' time, but we'll update us, everyone, on the Twitter feed as well, where we can.
Absolutely, and talking of High Life there, I guess we can seamlessly transition into the news that the first official trailer dropped online this week as well.
Yes, it did. It did, yeah. So High Life, which got some interesting buzz following its premiere at the Toronto Film Festival last September, now has a trailer and an American release date of April 12th. No word on a UK release yet, which is somewhat typical, but not much is known at this stage apart from Robert Patterson and his daughter struggle to survive in deep space where they live in isolation. And it's certainly an interesting trailer, so what did you think of it?
I thought it looked absolutely fantastic, and again, you're not sure of much about the plot or where it's going to go from the trailer. It's very atmospheric. It's got a great sort of soundtrack and sort of audio cues and stuff. It reminded me, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but it reminded me of, I had the feel of almost like a Lars von Trier sort of feel to it. There was just something about it that I think this film is going to go to very, very dark places. But I think we're looking at something more along the lines of your sort of Solaris sort of things. Don't go expecting any sort of Armageddon or other sort of, explosions and space battles and stuff like that. I think this is going to be very much a looking internal about what makes us human and the sort of relationships between man and space and stuff like this. I think it's going to be something. I think it could be something rather special, and hopefully it continues the great work that Robert Pattinson's been doing recently with Good Time and the likes.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one, and I had a bit of a viral tweet when this movie came out, because I was excited, but I was also somewhat pessimistic, and maybe I was just having a bad day where I was like, oh my god, this looks like a really fantastic original bit of science fiction. And I'm a science fiction fan, I love the sci-fi genre, I love my Star Treks, I love my original cinema from that genre. And one of the things you always hear from sci-fi fans is there's not enough original sci-fi films coming out. Oh, Arrival comes. Oh, when's going to be the next one's going to be the big one? And I get frustrated because I think there's such a huge audience for sci-fi films out there. Even if you chip away at things like the Star Wars crowd, Star Trek crowd, whatever, there's a lot of kind of sci-fi fans within that. But when movies like this come along, and even some of the sort of bigger sci-fi movies of the past few years, they sort of just get a little bit of attention. They're maybe there, they're kind of gone. I mean, even Blade Runner 2049, people that saw it loved it, but did it have a big impact at the box office? Not really. And I'm worried that something like High Life will kind of just be here, be gone, but the people that will see it will love it. And I'm curious to see kind of if there's going to be a bit of a wider connection, and whether those sci-fi fans that are always asking for original sci-fi new films, whether they're going to turn up. And I somewhat fear that they might not.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, there's nothing really about this film which screams mainstream sci-fi. It's going to be a difficult one for whoever takes on the UK release. I mean, this looks ideal for the likes of Curzon or someone like that and they would find the right audience for it, but I don't think it'll be a mainstream one. But occasionally you do get the odd one, like say Moon, I think managed to break out in the UK to become quite a small hit. But I think this is a film which will find its audience on home video and streaming and become something that people talk about later. And I mean, I'm all in for Blade Runner 2049. I thought it was my favourite film of that year. I thought it was an absolute masterpiece. I could have watched 4 or 5 hours of that world. But yeah, there were just some people who just didn't get it. But maybe High Life and Blade Runner, they'll take, nobody really liked Blade Runner when it first came out. It took like 30 years for people to properly appreciate it. It could be the same with this film. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we kind of come now to our sort of final bit of news for the day, and we're recording this not long after the Oscar nominations have come out, and well, it's been a bit of a disappointing one for really A24, with only Paul Schrader for First Reformed getting a nomination for Best Original Screenplay, which I thought might have even been touch and go with some of his comments in recent weeks and months that have kind of maybe caused a bit of contentiousness within Hollywood. But it's a bit of a disappointing one. We spoke recently about hoping Toni Collette would get a nomination for Hereditary. We're curious to see how Eighth Grade would perform, obviously not having seen it ourselves. And it's a bit of a disappointing return.
It was, yeah. And I mean, I guess the BAFTA nominations should have maybe given us a hint when Ethan Hawke wasn't nominated for that. But I mean, he's picked up a lot of the sort of Critics Circle Awards, and I guess his last hurrah on the campaign trail will be I think the Independent Spirit Awards, which should be a very good night for A24. I think they have a lot of nominations for that one. But I guess it just didn't. I guess it was the year of Netflix rather than A24 this time round. They had their time with Moonlight, but I expect there was a few surprises. I always thought there was going to be a wildcard slot when it came to Best Actress. I had my fingers crossed, for Toni Collette, but this year it was Yalitza Aparicio for Roma, which was itself a fantastic performance. She does a lot without saying very much at all, and it's all done with a face, and it's a fantastic performance. But I mean, again, is it just the horror genre? There's this stigma around it that people just don't take it as seriously because, I mean, Toni Collette's performance for me was one of the best performances of the last several years. But these A24 films, they can take pride in the fact that we are them, and we would always pick them as well. So we'll do when it comes to the Oscars, we'll do an alternative A24 Project Awards, and it's guaranteed that they'll win everything. So it's okay.
I like the sound of that. So that brings together, well, I suppose we have one last little bit of news, which literally just broke before we got this podcast recorded, and that is that the first reformed hats have returned to the A24 shop. So you can now flood in, I don't know how much they cost, is it $25 or something like that?
They're $20 each, yes.
There you go. If you live within America and Canada, you can get the first reformed hats. So, you can cheer on Paul Schrader on an Oscar night with the hat.
Absolutely. And if A24 are listening and would like to graciously send a couple of hats over to the UK, because they don't do UK postage yet, we would gladly wear them in any promotional shots we do for the A24 project. So just saying, we'll represent. I mean, somebody has to do something.
Exactly, I know that whatever happens, that film is going to live on in infamy through. It seems to be the go-to meme movie at the moment.
They've created a meme, if nothing else, so they can pride themselves in that.
Absolutely. So I suppose we've put it off kind of long enough. We're about to kind of wrap up 2014 for A24 with two movies which tell a very different immigrant story. And the first one up is Revenge of the Green Dragons, a Martin Scorsese produced A24 film about a New York crime family. This should be good, right? So, an immigrant named Sonny joined the Chinatown gang, the Green Dragons, when he was a kid and worked his way up through the gang hierarchy. But as he quickly rose up the ranks and became notorious in the community, his life falls apart around him. So Dallas, this film gave me some emergency alarms as soon as I was looking into it, because I don't know about you, but I did a little letterbox check and I was like, hey, I'm going to see what my friends and people I follow have thought of this film. And the only person that had seen it was you. Not any of my mad cinephile friends or friends that will see film after film at the cinema. You were the only person that I know, and I follow about 200 odd people in there, that had seen Revenge of the Green Dragons, and that is the only A24 film to date that I've seen that has this kind of, lack of appreciation or lack of viewers. What did you think of Revenge of the Green Dragons? Is this a film that cinephiles and film fans are missing out on, or have they stayed clear of this and avoided it because unlike us, they don't have an obligation to watch every A24 film for a podcast?
I think when it comes to the end of the A24 project, this is not one of those films which I will be putting in my top 10. Let's just say there's a chance that it could end up being in the bottom 10, because unfortunately, we'd like to try and stay positive, but there was not really anything in this film which I found remotely sort of compelling or engaging. And it was actually just a real disappointment, given the fact that, this comes from, executive produced by Martin Scorsese, who made the Oscar-winning Departed, which was the English language remake of the fantastic Infernal Affairs. And the director of Infernal Affairs is the director of Revenge of the Green Dragons. And I just don't know how that sort of partnership came up with something so sort of pedestrian and uninspired. I really don't know. I mean, okay, so searching for positives, there was one positive thing, and I liked the film starts. I mean, this was released, like say, 2014, but it's set in the 80s. And if you watch this film right now, as I watched it like last week for the podcast, when you start watching it, you think this film has been made at this very moment in time, because it's full of television clips and sort of press things talking about illegal immigration into the US, the massive problem we have with illegal immigration. These people are coming over, they're taking jobs and stuff like this. You know, we need to clamp down on it, blah, blah, make America great again, etc., etc. It just seems like it's been made, you know, by fans of the Trump organization or something. But beyond that, I mean, it sets up as something particularly very interesting, but then it does nothing really. It just becomes this, you know, apparently it's set on a true story, but it's very, you know, it's been there, done that. We've seen it all before, you know, the sort of Goodfellas rise, you know, these kids. It felt like a remake of Foreign Affairs until, and I'll come to this later on, but like the very end, which really sort of was like, I was like, really? You went there? Okay, right. But I mean, okay, one other thing was the actor who played the character of Paul, Harry Sheen Jr., who I was like, I recognize that guy, and he was in Crazy Rich Asians. I thought he was great. He had great screen presence, but the rest of it was a damp squid. And Ray Liotta in there. I mean, I don't know if you've seen I got the DVD. It took me a while to track down the DVD. It was a very difficult film to actually find to watch. And he's like the main person on the DVD, but, you know, he's in it for like 5 minutes. Basically, they've got a name in there to try and sell the movie. But, I mean, he sells his movie short because it's just, yeah, not very good at all. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was the same. I mean, I didn't have much of an issue finding it. I was lucky enough. I was able to rent it on Amazon for maybe like £2 or something like that to watch it. And you know, I'm surprised Ronald Reagan wasn't given a Anne starring role in this. You know, news footage of him fairly is dotted through the film, and yeah, I was kind of curious because I was thinking, like, this should be a film I kind of had heard about before. And remember when we were sort of putting together a list of these films at the time, I was like, no, that one doesn't ring a bell. I don't think I've seen it in the cinema. I've never seen it, you know, even in a FOP £3 bargain bin or anything like that. It felt really, you know, an odd film. I was like, but I was quite curious to check it out. And when I was kind of watching it, I was like, this is pretty awful. And it's like 95 minutes, but it's like 65 minutes worth of footage, but about 30 minutes of it is slowed down in slow motion action scenes and guns cocking and a bullet coming out slow motion. I genuinely thought it was a really poor movie, and I think, you know, the takings was really poor in the cinema as well. I mean, it was made on a budget of $5 million, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, to be fair, and you know, but it seems to have got a really, you know, limited return of its money. And I read sort of the directors were like, you know, yeah, critics haven't really liked it, but it comes out with I found this to be actually a real audience film, and in terms of audience reception, I don't think we've ever had a bad screening. It's interesting that critics hate this film because it's not an easy film to watch. It's a genre film dressed up as an art house film because you have Martin Scorsese's name on it, and it's like, no, that's not why I dislike it. It's just pretty poor. Seen it all before. It was just not that great.
Yeah, no, anytime someone brings it, we didn't make it for the critics line, you know you're in trouble, because you should be making it for everyone, because critics, you know, despite what some people think, critics are still film fans. I think the majority of film critics love cinema and actually go in wanting to like a film. And so therefore, you know, I mean, I'm sure some people have vendettas against certain filmmakers you just don't like. So therefore, your judgment about you side, but no one goes in looking to actively trash a film, I don't think. And I mean, yeah, like I say, we try to look for the positives, but the acting somewhere, you know, wasn't great. The action wasn't particularly inspired. I think the most frustrating thing for me was, you know, they're building up this, you know, it starts off with these two kids who are thrown together. They sort of become brothers. And then you're sort of focusing on one in his adult life who like suffers a lot. And it gets to the point where he's ready to turn on the crime family that he's been brought up in, and you think he's going to go on a one-man war, sort of seeking revenge, taking them all out. But it just kind of ends with oh yeah, well, they were all arrested and they went to jail and stuff, and you're like, what? Really? And then, oh yes, I've just remembered, I'd written this down because when it happened, I was like, that is one of the cringiest, worst lines of dialogue I've heard in a while. I'm not, you'll probably recognize what I say, but he's like talking about, there's a rain coming to Queens, and I don't think there's an umbrella big enough to keep everyone dry. And I'm like, ah. And it was just like, oh my God. But then, I mean, if you've reached this stage in the podcast, I mean, I'm just going to go briefly into spoiler territory. So, I mean, you can skip ahead a couple of minutes if by this point you're still intrigued to actually seek out and watch Revenge of the Green Dragons, please do. But I just want to talk about the ending. Which, have you seen The Departed and Infernal Affairs?
I have, yes.
Yeah, well, Infernal Affairs for me was one of the films I saw at the Belmont when it first came out. It was one of those films which really got me into like a wave of Asian cinema. I thought it was just utterly fantastic. And the ending is one of the all-time great endings where, the cop who was a member of the gang and the gang member who's now a cop, whatever, they're coming down in the lift, and then one of them is shot by another sort of informant and stuff like that. And there's like a twist ending about where the guy you think's going to get caught, but then he doesn't because the other one kills him off. And then they do something very similar in this one, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You're the maker of Infernal Affairs, and you've basically just used the exact same ending from Infernal Affairs. And it's impossible not to compare the two, given that you are the director of Infernal Affairs and your movie is executive produced by the man who remade Infernal Affairs. And I was just like, that was just like the cherry on the top. And the moment I just went, no, not for me.
Yeah, and I mean, a slight spoiler. The film ends in sort of typical fashion, when sometimes it's based on a true story. Say, hey, this is what happened next or in the future, and it plays out with sort of like Grand Theft Auto style game cutaways of like, boom, 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 this happened to this person, boom, 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 this happened to this person, and it's like really like it feels so off. I genuinely don't know how Martin Scorsese has any association with this movie, and it's. And I don't know what possessed A24 to spend money on this one. It was an odd one.
It was an odd one, but maybe like you say, the box office returns weren't great, but maybe they were looking for certain different audiences and finding films for different audiences. But this one, it was a bit of a swing and a miss for them, and I think I rated it 1 star on Letterboxd, and I think it's probably the worst film I've seen on the A24 project so far.
Yeah, I'm making a little list on Letterboxd as I go along, as I watch or rewatch these movies, and that's currently bottom of the pile. So yeah, not the best movie, but I think we have a better immigrant story to up next in the form of A Most Violent Year, and it appropriately wraps up our 2014 coverage of A24, because this film was released on December 31st, and it's all about Abel Morales, played by Oscar Isaacs in his pre-Star Wars day, the owner of a small heating oil company who is stressed by the competitiveness in the oil trade and is having to secure costly loans to expand his business. And while his truck drivers start getting hijacked, there's increasing pressure for his drivers to arm themselves. So Dallas, what was your first experience of A Most Violent Year? Did you catch this one at the cinema, or was this a first time watch for you?
No, I caught this at the cinema on first release. I was a big fan of Margin Call by the writer and director, this J.C. Chandor, and I'd seen All Is Lost as well, his Robert Redford on a boat movie, which was again very good. And I mean, I think it was the cast that I think was drew this one for me. I mean, Jessica Chastain, yes, absolutely. Anything that she's in, I rate her as like one of the best actresses working at the moment. Before the podcast, I was trying to think of, if I was to rate top 5, it would be Cate Blanchett, Jessica Chastain, Amy Adams, Emily Blunt, and Saoirse Ronan, I think, are the 5 actresses at the moment who I think can do no wrong and are excellent in any movie. And if their name is in a cast list, I'm immediately sort of, yes, I will go watch that movie because I love what they do. And she is great as a sort of mobster mall. Not say, well, she comes from a, let's say, a shadier past than Oscar Isaac's character in this, and a lot of the film is, I think I compared it to sort of Goodfellas slightly, and as long as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to own a heating company. But he's a man who wants to stay on the straight and narrow and have his business be legit, but he's on that knife edge, always threatening to go the other way, to potentially fall off. And a lot of it is not down to him. He's people are hijacking his trucks, and the unions are wanting his drivers to be armed. His wife may or may not be fiddling the books. He's not sure. He's got, there's this sort of council of, mobsters who all control these other heating agencies, and he's trying his best to stay a good man in this violent world. And will he succeed before the end of the film? We can maybe talk about that later on, but I thought it was an excellent performance by Oscar Isaac. I think this was probably one of the first things I think I'd really seen him in, probably along with, I think that was it the same year as Inside Llewyn Davis. So this was a bit of a double bill, but I thought he was great as the man who wanted to stay as clean as his sharp Armani suits and wool blend jackets.
Yeah, I caught this one at the cinema, and I was kind of, Oscar Isaacs was a bit of an unknown to me at the time, and I was kind of sold on the idea. I think J.C. Chandler had directed this movie that I really loved, and it's an odd film to love. It's a film called Margin Call, which is all spent within about 24 hours of this large financial company on the eve of like the crash in America. And it's all about people doing their jobs and the challenges they face, the corrupt decisions they make, but they're, kind of normal people that are caught up in this whole thing. And even though I can't imagine doing their jobs, it does a really good kind of portrayal of that. And I was really excited to see what he would do next. I know he did All Is Lost with Robert Redford, which was enjoyable, but it didn't really stick with me. But I was still keen to see what he would do next. And A Most Violent Year was that film, which again sort of kind of taps into that. It's about a person doing their job, trying to do it well, and the challenges that are faced it. And on kind of paper, Oscar Isaac's character, Morales, he isn't the most perhaps exciting person in the world. He is someone that is just passionate about distributing oil and fuel to people and making sure that his business goes well. He doesn't want to get involved in any escalation, but things all around him are just amping up and amping up. And I really quite like stories like that, where you have drama going on around someone, but they are trying to remain calm, and it's in a sort of mundane kind of job. It's delivering fuel. It's not something that's particularly sexy or exciting. It's a bunch of white people talking in diners sometimes about the challenges of their industry, and I found it to be a really good way to sort of show A Most Violent Year, as the title refers to that year, 1981 in America, in New York, which was considered the most violent year in New York for crimes and murders and so on. And I think they've taken a pretty unique angle for how they showed that, for just showing one person just trying to make their way in New York at the time and growing it. I thought it was a really good film, and Jessica Chastain's brilliant in it. She's got, like, me and my girlfriend were watching it, and her favourite film of last year was Molly's Game, and I was like, we'd just rewatched it, I think, the night before on Amazon Prime, and I was started to watch, and I was like, oh, you should come watch this with me. And we were just looking at Jessica Chastain, and we were like, that woman has got, like, big dick energy. Just the way she struts around, she wears these sorts of revealing outfits, but it's very much a power move, and just how she talks to her husband, and, there's the police officer, the district attorney, and she's just like, just flicks the cigarette and just like, that's very disrespectful. She has just got so much power. And the reason that someone like Morales can be this salt of the earth, I'm just doing a good job, I'm not corrupt, I'm not doing anything, is because this powerful woman is behind him that's really pulling the strings. And he is just essentially this kind of schluck that's just doing his job. He thinks he's the one that's making it this big success, but in reality, it's actually her.
Yeah, I know. I mean, she wears the trousers, I think, in that relationship. And, he's, he's the face of the business, he's the one who's, there's that great scene where he's like got the new recruits, and he's sort of taking them through how to pitch. You sort of dab their oil container. You then, for about a minute, you just stare down at the oil, and then you look up at them, and then you hold their gaze until more than is comfortable, and then then you say, shall we talk? And then it's like, if they offer you coffee or tea, you take tea. You always take the more expensive option, because we are the more expensive option, but we are the best, and you need to show that you are, and we are the best. And it was just a great thing, because like you say, it's this, he's an immigrant, he's trying to make it, and like you say, it's set in New York, so the song says, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, and he's trying to prove he can do that, but do it the right way. But like you say, he thinks he is the brains behind the business, but really, she is the one that is making sure that everything happens the correct way. And it might not be the right way, but she'll get the job done more than anyone else. And I mean, it's never more highlighted than the scene where there's several points where you think now is a point where he is going to make the turn, because it's called A Most Violent Year. People are probably expecting a lot more action and danger and stuff. And there's a bit where he hits a deer, and he's going to get a tire iron. He's psyching himself up to put this deer out of its misery, and then out of nowhere, Jessica Chastain just comes in and unloads a full magnum into the deer's head, and then walks off. Basically, calls him a pussy, and it's just like, yeah, she is, like you say, yeah, big dick energy, which is the phrase of the day. And yeah, she's just fantastic. And I thought David Oyelowo was great as the district attorney who's investigating him as well. Albert Brooks is great in a small role as the lawyer as well. It's a great cast, and it's got a great look. The period detail is fantastic. It really does feel like it's set in the 80s, and I thought it was just fantastic. And Christopher Abbott as well in a small supporting role. People may know him from Girls and stuff, but he was in a great film a couple of years ago called James White. It was at the Glasgow Film Festival. Never really got a full release in the UK, but that was a fantastic film, and he was fantastic in it as well.
And I think we should also give some love to the hairpiece that Albert Brooks wears in this movie as well, which is deserving of its own attention.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great to see Albert Brooks in those kind of roles. He was great in Drive, so sinister in Drive. Actually, that's probably the first time I actually saw Oscar Isaac was Drive. I'd completely forgotten he was in Drive until just now. But yeah, no, he was Carey Mulligan's husband in that. So yeah, that was probably the first time that I'd seen him. So yeah.
And I'm with you. I love that it's got this title, Most Violent Year, and you probably go in, you hear the idea, it's about mobsters and escalation, but it just always feels grounded. And it may be a slow movie, but it's never one that you're bored watching. You're always engaged with it, because it just keeps taking away, going up. And something as simple as what would probably be a tiny scene in sort of a big action movie. There's the scene where you've got these tanks of fuel, they're heading off to New York, and the guy notices someone's coming to try and hijack the truck, and then they have a bit of a shootout on the bridge, which is just, like normal people probably would, a bit haphazard, things are flying, people are terrified, and he runs away. And that is a really tense, and that is probably the big scene in the movie in terms of this most violent year. And I thought it was really good as well. I loved how it just stayed grounded, and it never became something where you think, it could be easy to do a most violent year in New York, and it's about drugs, it's about police corruption, where in reality it's just about some man just trying to make his way in that kind of world and staying true to himself.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's probably, like you say, two sort of big sequences. There's the sort of failed hijacking on the Queensborough Bridge, which doesn't go the way you think, because these hoodlums and are not really that bright and whatever, and it's not really anything personal. It's like they're all running away from the driver, and the hoodlums start to run away from the cops, and then they're basically almost helping each other out and trying to get away from the cops. And he's like, what are you doing, you idiot? Why did you shoot us? And you tried to rob me and stuff. It's nothing personal. We just wanted the van. And then they're like, oh, you keep going down the stairs. There's an exit. Blah blah blah. And then and it's just, I thought it was a really sort of nice moment that everyone wasn't just like out and out criminals. They were just, people were just maybe doing this just to make a living and stuff like that. And then you've got the chase sequence where Oscar Isaac manages to catch up with one of the vans, and that's another point where you think, okay, this is gonna be the moment where he's gonna turn and do whatever he has to do to make sure his business survives, because you get this sort of race against time at the end where some money sort of falls through and he's needing to raise like $1.5 million in 2 days, and you think, okay, this is where it's all going to go wrong. But again, who's the one that solves all the problems? It's Jessica Chastain, who, you know, could solve anyone's problems, I think. Certainly she spoke a lot of sense in Molly's Game about, you know, gun lobbying and stuff like that. You know, that is a film which got a very unfair critical reaction. A lot of it from the pro-gun lobbies and stuff like that. But she was magnificent in that film, and deserving of more attention.
That was Miss Sloane.
Oh, sorry, Miss Sloane, wasn't it? Yes, not Molly's Game. Yeah, Molly's Game. I was thinking of Miss Sloane. Yeah.
Yes, both posters do just feature Jessica Chastain, just like filling the poster. You could never tell the difference between the two. So, have you got any final thoughts on A Most Violent Year?
Well, I think looking back on 2014 for A24 project, it probably was a most violent year. We had, child abduction, we had zombie apocalypse, we had an Australian dystopia, and we had also a man being thrown into a walrus costume. But this, I think, for me, was one of the most sort of grounded and accomplished and well put together sort of films. It didn't seem to get much award sort of glamour at the time. I think Jessica Chastain was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, but beyond that, I thought this was something that could have done really well. But for me, I think this is up there for one of the best of 2014 for the A24.
I'm just having a look at the sort of the past. We've kind of covered 2013 and 2014 now of the A24 project, and I'm just looking at the box office totals for the films down the side on the Wikipedia page. And A Most Violent Year with 12 million at the box office was the second highest grossing A24 movie. Oh, it was the third highest grossing one. Spring Breakers had 31.2 million, Bling Ring had 19.1, and then it kind of drops down to A Most Violent Year with 12 million. And yeah, looking at the box office for Revenge of the Green Dragons, it is $107,412. So quite an interesting way to end 2014 for the company.
Yeah, but I think, this is a company that, you know, is still finding its feet. This is 16 films in. Again, they're a distribution company at this point, so they are sometimes at the mercy of dealers. You know, they'll go in, they'll make their pitches, and it's about what they can secure. I mean, I think you talked about in the first or second episode when talking about Spring Breakers, what they were actually looking for, was it Frances Ha and stuff, as their first movies. So I mean, they won't always get their number one, but you know, this is a business, as I say, but then they do the best with what they've got on the films that they've got. I mean, ultimately, I don't think they would buy something unless they truly believed in it, perhaps with the exception of Revenge of the Green Dragons, who knows. But I mean, this was a very accomplished film, and this is probably very representative of where we're starting to go in the future, I think, and a great sort of point to end 2014 and move into 2015 for them. So.
Absolutely. So we'll kick off 2015 in 2 weeks' time with Son of a Gun and Noah Baumbach's While We're Young. So I hope you'll join us then. And I just want to say thank you. We've received another iTunes review, I've noticed, this week, so thank you very much for that. And thank you. Like, for some bizarre reason, this was the first week that we were actually able to see who's actually listening to the show, who's downloading and streaming, and things like that. Up until now, we have no idea if just 2 people were listening to this, our pals were listening to this, and it's been nice to see that people are kind of tuning in and discovering the show and just such a kind of limited time as well. So I just want to thank everyone that's left a review, checked out the show, downloaded, shared it, told us, oh, I got your podcast mixed up with the official one or something like that on a Kevin Smith Reddit. All those things, I really appreciate it, and it was nice to see that people are enjoying the show and checking out too. So that means we'll continue to keep doing it, and hopefully you'll continue to tune in and keep telling people about it.
Absolutely. And Kevin Smith liked one of our tweets regarding the A24 project. Who knows, we might have a new fan as well.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you Kevin. It was much appreciated, and it was quite a cracker of a tweet from yourself as well, Dallas.
Oh well, I try my best.
So we will see you all in 2 weeks' time for our trip into 2015 for the A24 project, and be sure to follow us on Join Nerd Party, where we'll update with some A24 news as it no doubt will kind of unfold as soon as this episode has been finished recorded. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.